Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Joining me today from the Fitch-Rona EMS, our friend Jeff Dostalek, Deputy Chief, so much more. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you very much. Great introduction.
Hey, yeah. Well, you are the man, so we got to step it up every time we can. Jeff, we got a couple of different topics to talk about today. We'll start. I as marked it as 'tis the season for slips and falls because we're kind of in that transition period where it's warm, it's cold, it's warm, it's cold, then you can slip and fall and everything else. So as we start to close out winter, have you guys been seeing a lot of those types of things because of the weather?
We've seen a few. Unfortunately, the people in our district are rather safe, which is good from that standpoint. But it is something that constantly worries me because, those injuries, whether they're, breaks of bones and hands and, legs, they also cause head injuries. And those can be much more devastating, especially for those patients that are on Coumadin or warfarin or any of those blood thinning products. So I remind my wife every morning when she walks out to, watch for the ice, and she always turns and gives me that funny look of like, why do you keep reminding me of that? And I told her, I keep reminding you of it because it's one of those things that we just, as it gets warmer, we go for walks and we just don't pay much attention to those small slippery spots that are on the sidewalks or in the parking lots because of the melting snow. So I just ask people to really pay attention of, their surroundings when they're out there, especially now as the snow is melting. Today it's 40 degrees. It's going to be nice all weekend. Fortunately, most of the snow will melt. But if we do get another snowstorm and then it happens to freeze and melt, and it does become an issue. And I know the ERs have been fairly busy with those types of incidents as well. So I ask people just to be real careful when they're out there.
Yeah, I think great safety tips, and I know that I'm a victim to a fall of black ice that I didn't see. It was warm out, and sprained my ankle years ago. So it happens just like that. And of course, I was distracted by the cell phone, so I'll leave it at that.
Right. Don't walk don't walk and text at the same time.
You just can't do it. It just can't do it. Also, COVID-19, the mask mandate just lifted in Dane County for indoor parts. But overall, what are you seeing out there as far as trends goes? We've seen definitely go down, but this first quarter, what were were you seeing a lot of calls related, or what have you seen out there?
Yeah, call volume was, I'll knock on wood because I haven't said this very often in the last year and a half, but call volume was actually under 300 calls for the month of February. That's the first time in over 13 months where the service has been under 300 calls. The calls that we're seeing are higher acuity, trauma related stuff as summer as spring starts to open up. We've seen a lot of cardiac arrest calls, and I'm not really sure what those are a result of. As we know, when COVID hit, a lot of people didn't want to go to the hospital. A lot of elective procedures were put on hold. People waited because they didn't want to be, they didn't want to go in and expose themselves to that hospital stuff. But I think from the standpoint of the staff, our staff is healthy. We were fortunate enough to not have a lot of staff go out with COVID. Where we saw some staff absences was a result of family members being sick and staff having to stay home and take care of them. So we did a phenomenal job, I think, from our staff standpoint to take care of ourselves and follow the rules that were out there. We've opened up at least, the mask mandate in the station has gone away. What we've asked our staff is to make sure that they wear, if they're sick or have a family member that is sick, to make sure that they wear a mask, to protect themselves and others. And then, of course, we'll still highly recommend that they wear at least a surgical mask while they're out on calls. If it's a respiratory, cardiac arrest, high acuity type call, we've encouraged them to put on an N95. We've seen, as far as getting supplies in, the supply chain has opened up quite a bit. So we do have, an adequate amount of N95s to get us through, hopefully not another pandemic, but, a couple of years of, just regular, calls. So
Yeah.
fortunately, we've been very lucky, I think.
Well, that's good to hear, and appreciate the update on that front. Final discussion today. You guys announced that you'll be part of a study of lights and sirens and not using them as much. Tell us about this trend.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm really excited about this study. Historically, emergency service providers, run red lights and sirens to all of the calls that we go to, and there's been a misconception that using lights and sirens gets us there faster. The national study by the National Association of EMS, the Quality Alliance, which are national providers around the country, have gotten together to take a look and see if that's really the case. Are we really getting there faster? Some studies have shown that we're not. We're only saving about anywhere between 40 seconds and about 2.5 minutes on average, a 90 percentile average of calls. So what we're trying to do is take a look at the calls that we've dispatched that are lower acuity calls, the alpha level, low acuity calls, Bravo level, low acuity calls, and some of the Charlie level calls, and not responding red lights and sirens to those calls, because we're really not saving any time. But we are, when we respond lights and sirens, really putting ourselves and the public at risk by going through those intersections, changing the lights. People that are driving don't know which way to turn. And the same holds true for transporting to the hospital. Are we really making a difference by going faster to get to the hospital? Now, I get it if it's your loved one and we're showing up with no lights and sirens and you wonder why we're doing that. I understand that there's a public perception. Part of the study is to throw out as in, how do we change culture, and how do we change the numbers? And for us, the numbers as far as response is concerned, we want to be at about 70% of our responses being no lights and sirens, and we're between 55 and 60%. So we still have some work to do on that. And then as far as transporting to the hospital, they want us at least at 95% of the time transporting no lights and sirens, and we're between 88 and 90. So we're pretty close on those. And what we'll look at is those responses that are being transported to the hospital, lights and sirens, is we'll QA those calls to see if they were really necessary. Part of it is educating the staff on expectations and what our response policy is. And then this part of it for us today, and I'm glad you brought it up, is educating the public and trying to change the public perception that not every call, while we understand it's your emergency and we're there for you, but not every call requires a really rapid response of lights and sirens. So we're trying to do it, be proactive, take the public's interest in mind, understand where they're coming from. And if we need to do more education to change the culture of the perception of the public on what an emergency is. Now, we're working with our fire department partners in this, and it's an ongoing process. So I would suspect that, as we work through this, you may see the ambulance show up, non-emergent fire truck may show up, with lights and sirens. And we're trying to figure out how we can best serve the public with closest unit going red lights and sirens and other units not. So that's where we're at. I encourage people to send me an email, jeffd@Fitch-Rona EMS.com. You certainly can call us, and I'll explain, try to explain what we're trying to do here and try to change the public perception.
Yeah, and
It's
it's education. Lift. It is. It's a big education piece on both fronts, and that's what the study will help kind of help decipher through and see those trends, and it's safety first, right? If the ambulance can't get to you, then it's not going to be worth anybody's time for calling 911. Not saying that Fitch-Rona or any EMS service or fire service isn't safe on getting there, but you're right. It's just that education of when that's happening and everything that surrounds that. So it's going to be great to get more information, Jeff, and we'll certainly follow up with you on that for sure.
We're one of 50 services around the country. We were chosen to be one of 50 services. City of Madison Monona and Deer Grove EMS in our area are part of the study. So it's not just us doing it locally. This is being looked at across the country, and how do we change perception across the country and saving lives, saving lives by not crashing ambulances and getting providers and the public hurt in the response of what could be considered a non-emergent call is important.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you breaking it down, Jeff, and we'll look forward to learning more on that report and check back in with you next month.
Great, thanks.
You bet. Jeff Dostalek, your Deputy Chief of Fitch-Rona EMS, and we'll check back in with them real soon and keep you up to date on that lights and sirens study. We'll take a quick break. More to come. You're watching Talking Fitchburg.